So for today's stream, we are going to be focusing on SAT Practice Test 3, in particular, the first passage to the reading test. The reading test can be the bane of a lot of students because oftentimes the SAT will pick a story that was written a long time ago. For example, this particular passage was written in 1911. So the language will be very different, the values will be very different, and a lot of the answers can feel really subjective and arbitrary. What I'm here to show you is that the SAT is still trying to follow the rules of objectivity. That is, the answer that they want you to select, you cannot debate because it's objectively true, and all the other choices have significant flaws which cannot be justified regardless of what you try to argue. Okay. So I'll be going over my particular process on how I approach reading. If you have any comments or suggestions for my techniques, please go ahead and put them in the comments below or type it into chat. So the first thing that I do is I look at the questions first and I see if there are any questions that have line references. So the first question I see that has a line reference is question 2 at line 2. So what I'm going to do is on line 2, I'm going to write the question number. So it happens to be 2. And I am going to write the number 2 next to where the line reference is. What this tells me is as I read this passage, once I pass this number 2, as soon as I'm done finishing the sentence, I will attempt that question at that moment. Okay. So that is the first annotation. If I continue, the next annotation will be for question 4. Now, when there are questions that have multiple line references, the only line that I care about is the last line reference. In this case, line reference 32. So we'll go to line 32. I'll put in question number 4. So line 32 is over here. I'm going to write the number 4. The next line reference, question 5. Lines 14 to 15. So I look at 15. And on line 15, I'm going to write the number 5. Now see question 6, line 55. So line 55, number 6. So 7 does not have a reference, 8 does not have a reference, 9 doesn't have a reference, 10 does, line 82. Okay, so I call this question annotation. You can also call this question mapping. And this will now dictate the order in which we answer the questions. We're going to first answer questions that are annotated. And then when we get to the end of the passage, we will then answer all the unannotated questions. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. This passage is adapted from Saki, the Schartz method, originally published in 1911. Lady Carlotta stepped out onto the platform of the small wayside station and took a turn or two up and down its uninteresting length to kill time till the train should be pleased to proceed on its way. Okay, so then the sentence here, notice I did not stop until I got to the end of the sentence before I got to the question. So question 2. In line 2, turn most nearly means. So when I see the words most nearly means, this indicates that this is a vocab question. More specifically, it's a vocab-in-context question. You can't answer this question by just knowing what the definition of turn is. You need to actually look at the words around it and see what would be appropriate. So the way that I like to answer these questions is I will literally cross out the word that is being mentioned. So I'm just cross out turn, and I just think of that as a blank. And I'm simply just want to know what should be filled in the blank. So the first choices as we have is slight movement. All right, so Lady Carlota stepped out onto the platform of the small wayside section and took a small movement or two up and down. It's an uninteresting length. Doesn't seem like slight movements to me. I don't know if I'm ready to eliminate entirely, so I'm going to give it what's called a soft no. I don't like it. There's probably something better, but I'm still open to selecting it. Okay. B, change in rotation. Did she take a change in rotation or two up and down? It's under interesting length. Doesn't really make sense. I'm going to give this a hard no. Okay. Short walk. Did she took a short walk or two up and down its uninteresting length. This seems to make more sense. I'll give this a soft yes. Okay. Did she take a course correction or two? That doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm selecting C. All right. Okay. Not much there. Ready to move on. Then, in the roadway beyond, she saw a horse struggling with a more than ample load and a carter of the sort that seems to bear a sullen hatred against the animal that helps him to earn a living. Lady Carlota promptly betook her to the roadway and put rather a different complexion on the struggle. Certain of her acquaintances were wont to give her plentiful admonition as to the undesirability of interfering on behalf of a distressed animal, such interference being none of her business. Only once had she put the doctrine of non-interference into practice, when one of its most eloquent exponents had been besieged for nearly 3 hours in a small and extremely uncomfortable May-tree by an angry boar-pig, while Lady Carlota, on the other side of the fence, had proceeded with the watercolor sketch she was engaged on and refused to interfere between the boat and his prisoner. Whew, that was a lot. Going to question 5. The description of how Lady Carlota put the doctrine of non-interference in practice mainly serves to foreshadow her capacity for deception. Now, I just put this bar here because I like to separate the answer choices into pieces. So the 3 types of words I'm looking for in these answer choices are nouns, verbs, and modifiers. And I basically want to check that all the nouns are accounted for, that the verbs and the connections between those nouns are accounted for, as well as any modified words. So foreshadow means to look into the future. Her capacity for deception. Now, this is a weird phrase here. Deception is a noun. Deception meaning to lie or tendency to lie. Now, has the passage here support this idea that Lady Carlota is a liar? Not much. I mean, it establishes that she saw a horse struggling, and she saw that there seems to be, I guess, an owner or something who has a hatred for this horse, even though this horse is helping this person make a living. And she wants to interfere on behalf of distressed animals. I don't know if that makes her a liar. So, I mean, it's possible that she'd be foreshadowing. We obviously haven't read the rest of this passage, but I'm thinking soft no here for A. Okay. B, illustrate the subtle cruelty in her nature. All right. Now, illustrate, general word. Yeah. The description could illustrate something, but subtle cruelty. Again, we need to think about what are the conditions that would make this objectively cruel. When we think about cruelty, I usually think of power. It's usually when someone powerful is abusing someone who is not in power and is doing it just for the sake of enjoyment, just for the sake of being mean. There's no real purpose other than being entertained, right? Being entertained by abuse. I don't think Lady Carlota is cruel in this sense. I'm giving this a hard no. Okay, let's look at C. Provide a humorous insight. Provide a humorous insight into her character. Okay, providing something? Sure. A humorous insight? It's a weird choice. I'm going to put a question mark on that. I don't know what the SAT wants me to think is humorous here. But I guess in some context, it could be considered funny. It's possible. I think it's better than capacity for deception. Again, even though there were foreshadowing, there's usually, when it comes to fiction, writers tend to preface these ideas. They try to make their characters consistent. And so I don't think I see deception. Like, if I had to lean between these two, like, I would definitely eliminate A first. So I'm kind of putting this kind of like a maybe. I kind of really don't know either way with C. All right? But the thing is, I'm not going to worry about that because I don't want to get into any debates early on in the passage. I'm simply just trying to look at choices that I think are absolutely 100% impossible. And C, I don't think is impossible. Okay. Let's look at D. Explain a surprising change in her character. Okay. Change is the noun. Surprising is the modifier. I'm going to check both. I'm first going to check if there is a change in her behavior, putting the doctrine of non-interference. Well, we already read before that she typically interferes on behalf of distressed animals. So to only once putting the doctrine of non-interference into practice would indicate a change. Okay, so I'll go with that. The question, though, is that surprising? Are we surprised that she changed her behavior? Well, how did she employ the doctrine of non-interference? Well, it says that one of its most eloquent exponents, weird phrase, had been besieged for nearly 3 hours in a small and extremely uncomfortable May tree by an angry boar pig, while Lady Carlota on the other side of the fence. So Lady Carlota is on the other side of the fence while this boar pig is, I guess, messing with some person or animal or whatever this exponent is. Proceeded with the watercolor sketch she was engaged on. So she was painting, and she refused to interfere between the boar and his prisoner. Should I be surprised that she didn't interfere? I mean, this is an angry boar pig. I mean, maybe it's surprising, but I don't know. Right? If I had a choice between painting and trying to face an angry boar pig, I'd probably be painting. I mean, maybe I would go get help, but I don't think I'm going to be interfering on my own. So I don't think the writer is intending that this is a situation where suddenly she was changing her philosophy. It sounds like this is a situation where she shouldn't get involved here. So again, this is a maybe, but again, I'm trying to lean toward like a soft no in this case. If I had to choose between C and D, it seems like I don't think the writer wants us to think that this is surprising. And I don't think that Lady Carlota has this tendency to lie. So could this be seen as something kind of quirky? And humorous? Yeah, not really liking the answer, but I dislike the other answers more. So we'll go with 5C. Continuing. It is to be feared that she lost the friendship of the ultimately rescued lady. Okay, this pretty much seals the deal that this is supposed to be humorous, right? Because this is clearly an extreme situation, and the writer has now written this sentence, which is really stating the obvious. Yeah, if Lady Carlota is not going to help out a person who's being attacked by an angry boar pig, yeah, I don't think the friendship is going to last. So I feel more confident with 5. Okay. On this occasion, she merely lost the train, which gave way to the first sign of impatience it had shown throughout the journey, and steamed off without her. She bore the desertion with philosophical indifference. Her friends and relations were thoroughly well used to the fact of her luggage arriving without her. So, okay. She wired a vague, non-committal message to her destination to say that she was coming on by another train. I don't know where I wrote this here. Let's continue. Let's finish this sentence here. Before she had time to think what her next move might be, she was confronted by an imposingly attired lady who seemed to be taking a prolonged mental inventory of her clothes and looks. 4 says, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Well, since we need the previous question, let's go ahead and read the previous question. The passage most clearly implies that other people regarded Lady Carlota as. And if we're following the strategy of following nouns and verbs, we have other people, we have Lady Carlota, and regarded. When I see a verb, I ask, who is doing the regarding? It's that other people. So we need to make sure that as we read these quotes, we are thinking about other people. Do we have evidence of an impression that other people have of Lady Carlota? I like to start with the last sentence. She to train. So 30 to 32. I'm also going to write boundaries on she and train. So 30, she to train. She wired a vague non-committal message to her destination by to say that she was coming on by another train. Okay, nothing really about her, so D is out. 23, 26, on this to her. On this to her. On this occasion, she merely lost the train, which gave way to the first sign of impatience it had shown throughout the journey, and steamed off without her. So this is about a train leaving. Really nothing to do with impressions, what other people think about her. Okay. 2023, it is to lady. Here's it is and lady. It is to be feared that she lost the friendship of the ultimately rescued lady. Okay. Now, there does imply that there's an opinion of Lady Carlota, but it's one lady, and we don't really know anything about what she thinks about Lady Carlota. So it's really difficult to see how B could say something about what other people might regard Lady Carlota as. I mean, maybe we look at the answer choices. I mean, we can't tell if she's outspoken. We can't tell if she's tactful. We can't tell if Lady Carlota is ambitious. Okay, she did lose a friendship, but we don't know whether the friendship was due to her unfriendliness. All that it says is that the friendship was lost. So B doesn't really give us much. Here. All right, let's hope A has something. Lines 10 to 14. Certain to business. Certain is here. Business here. Certain of her acquaintances were wont to give her plentiful admonition as to the undesirability of interfering on behalf of a distressed animal, such interference being none of her business. Oh, certain of her acquaintances. That's other people. And they're going to admonish her as to the undesirability of interfering. Now remember, Lady Carlotta wants to interfere on behalf of distressed animals. They are saying that she should not. Okay. Because it's none of her business. All right. So other people think Lady Carlotta gets into other people's business. All right. So what type of person would get into other people's business? Would outspoken people? Maybe. I don't know if that's how I would put it that way, but it's possible. Tactful people? No. Tactful means that you're like polite and proper. Getting in other people's business is not tactful. Do you think that she's ambitious? No, ambition involves achievement and gaining things for yourself. I don't think it's ambitious. Is she being unfriendly? Well, no, because she wants to help animals. So I think the answers here are A for 3 and A for 4. Okay. Going back. Before she had time to think what her next move might be, she was confronted by an imposingly attired lady, oh yeah, that's right, who seemed to be taking a prolonged mental inventory of her clothes and looks. You must be Miss Hope, the governess I've come to meet, said the apparition, in a tone that admitted of very little argument. Very well, if I must, said Lady Carlotta to herself with dangerous meekness. I am Mrs. Quabarl, continued the lady, and where, pray, is your luggage? It's gone astray, said the alleged governess, falling in with the excellent rule of life that the absent are always to blame. The luggage had, in point of fact, behaved with perfect correctitude. I've just telegraphed about it, she added, with a nearer approach to truth. How provoking, said Mrs. Quabarl. These railway companies are so careless. However, my maid can lend you things for the night, and she led the way to her car. During the drive to the Quabarl mansion, Lady Carlotta was impressively introduced to the nature of the charge that had been thrust upon her. She learned that Claude and Wilfred were delicate, sensitive young people, that Irene had the artistic temperament highly developed, and that Viola was something or else of a mold equally commonplace among children of that class and type in the 20th century. Whew. Question number 6. In line 55, charge most nearly means. So let's go ahead and cross out charge in line 55. Okay, what are we going to plug in charge with? Responsibility. Lady Carlotta was impressively introduced to the nature of the responsibility that had been thrust upon her. That feels so good. I don't even think I need to check the others. Yeah. The attack, the fee, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's definitely A. I wish them not only to be taught, said Mrs. Quabarl, but interested in what they learn. In their history lessons, for instance, you must try to make them feel that they are being introduced to the life stories of men and women who really lived, not merely committing a mass of names and dates to memory. French, of course, I shall expect you to talk at mealtimes several days in the week. I shall talk French 4 days of the week and Russian in the remaining 3. Russian? My dear Miss Hope, no one in the house speaks or understands Russian. That will not embarrass me in the least, said Lady Carlotta coldly. Wow. Mrs. Quabarl, to use a colloquial expression, was knocked off her perch. She was one of those imperfectly self-assured individuals who are magnificent and autocratic as long as they are not seriously opposed. The least show of unexpected resistance goes a long way towards rendering them cowed and apologetic. When the new governess failed to express wondering admiration of the large, newly purchased and expensive car, and lightly alluded to the superior advantages of one or two makes which had just been put on the market, the discomfiture of her patroness became almost abject. Ooh, a lot of stuff there. Question 10. Which of these choices provide best evidence? We look at the previous question. As presented in the passage, Mrs. Quarbarl is best described as. Let's look at the last sentence. She was 77 to 82. 77, 82, opposed. She was one of those imperfectly, okay, so she is Mrs. Quarbarl. She was one of those imperfectly self-assured individuals who are magnificent and autocratic as long as they are not seriously opposed. So this is talking about Mrs. Quarbarl. Let's see what matches here. So we're considering D for 10. Okay. Is she superficially kind? Again, there are two words here. Kind is the modifier. Superficially is modifying kind. Is Ms. Quarbarl kind? I don't think in the passage, right? She says he's autocratic. So I don't think kind is the first word that comes up. Okay. Outwardly imposing. Okay. She's imposing, I would definitely say. Being autocratic supports that. Is she outwardly imposing? Yeah, I would probably say that as well. Okay. But easily defied. Okay, if we go back to the quote, can she be defied easily? Oh, as long as they are not seriously opposed, which implies that if she is opposed, that she's no longer magnificent and autocratic. That seems to be someone who is easily defied. I'm selecting both of these, 9B and 10D. Finish this off. Her feelings were those which might have animated a general of ancient warfaring days on beholding his heaviest battle elephant ignominiously driven off the field by slingers and javelin throwers. Okay, I didn't get that, but let's just tackle the rest of the questions here. Okay, so now we're going to do the unannotated questions, starting with 7. The narrator indicates that Claude, Wilfrid, Irene, and Viola are similar to many of their peers. Okay, so where did we hear about Claude, Wilfrid, Irene, and Viola? Okay, those are here. It was in this paragraph from line 53. So we learned that Claude and Wilfrid were delicate, sensitive young people, that Irene had the artistic temperament highly developed, and that Viola was something or other else of a mold equally commonplace among children of that class and type in the 20th century. Okay, so they're commonplace. Are they similar to many of their peers? Well, of their class, commonplace to their peers, that does seem to fit. I mean, the adjectives seem special. Like, I get that Claude and Wilfrid were delicate, sensitive young people, and maybe that makes them different, but not different compared to their peers. Irene had the artistic temperament highly developed. Well, again, we would imagine that people of those class would also be highly developed because, again, it says commonplace among children of that class and type. So, soft, yes. Not 100%, but okay. Okay. Unusually creative. All right, again, we saw creative, but I don't think it's unusually. It's one thing to say hi, but again, we cannot also contradict the fact that it's commonplace. Okay. Hostile to the idea of a governess. Hostile, no. Right? We don't see anything of hostility. Hostility would imply that they're like almost violently against a governess. Okay. More educated. Okay, they definitely seem educated. Are they more educated? Again, more and less implies a comparison. More compared to whom? Others of their age? No. Because remember, it's commonplace among their peer group. So the correct answer for 7, I think, would be A. Okay. Last question, 8. The narrator implies that Mrs. Quabarl favors a form of education that emphasizes traditional values. Great. Here's our noun, values and traditional. Let's go back to Mrs. Quabarl. What did she specifically say? I wish them not only to be taught, but interested in what they learn. In their history lessons, for instance, you may try to make them feel that they are being introduced to the life stories of men and women who really lived. Okay, so let's go back up a bit. Are these traditional values? The truth is we don't know. In order to know that these are traditional values, we would need to establish what the regular values are. And it never really states that these are things that have been done in the past. So we can't tell if these are traditional. Okay. Emphasizes active engagement. Now, this could be interesting. Let's go back and let's make sure about engagement and making sure that they're active. Interested in what they learn. That would imply, if they're interested, that they could be active. I'm not ready to say that that's the correct answer, but interest, I think, would imply some sort of participation. But it seems to be more focused on feeling. Feel that they are being introduced to life stories of men and women who really lived. Not merely committing a mass of names and dates. Okay? But I would definitely lean more toward B, which I think knocks out A. Okay. Artistic experimentation? No. Artistic would imply that they are supposed to create their own kind of like stories and art, and that's not the case here when Ms. Quabarl talked about history. Factual retention? No, because that's more than just the dates. So I would go here with 8B. Okay. Now, just to verify that these are the answers. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I completely forgot about 1. Whew. Good thing I checked number 1. Which choice best summarizes the passage? Okay. Again, the pressure might be to know what the entire passage is about, but what we really want to do is focus on the answer choices and just check if the pieces work. A woman weighs, okay, a woman, I'm guessing we could say is Lady Carlota. The positive and negative aspects of accepting a new job. I wouldn't say that. I don't think there was any weighing here. She just seemed to go with the flow. So I don't think it's that. Okay. A woman does not correct a stranger. That seems true because Mrs. Quabarl thinks that Lady Carlota is someone else. Right? If we go back, she thinks that she's Miss Hope, who mistakes her for someone else. That seems pretty simple. I can't see anything wrong with that. When women impersonate someone else, I think this is a red flag. Impersonate implies, again, more active involvement. It means that she knows that she's being deceitful and she's pretending that she is this other person. And I wouldn't quite go so far as say that. Basically, she doesn't correct Mrs. Quabarl. Right? She basically says, oh, well, if you say so, right? Like, I will be whoever you say I am. But that's not impersonating. To really be sure, to seek revenge? No. Yeah, this is way extreme. Definitely 100% wrong. D, a woman takes an immediate dislike. No, not really. I can't sense a dislike either. She's quirky, but no. So I would go with 1B. All right, now I think we're ready to check the answers here. 1B, 2C, 3A, 4A, 5C, 6A, 7A, 8B, 9B, 10D. And it looks like we are all perfect, right? We are 10 of 10. We can verify that. Let me just take out the display right here. I've written down the choices. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can see them because they're in yellow. Why did I pick yellow? I don't know. But we got all of them right. So what are the lessons that I want us to get from doing this practice test? Let's keep in mind that this is not easy, all right? It's not easy to read this type of work. Let me bring up the practice test here. So what is it that I want us to learn about how we deal with these really difficult passages with really difficult language? I want you to notice how we are focusing on the questions. I want you to see how we're breaking down these questions before we make judgments, okay? I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is we read too fast, and as a result, we miss the detail in the answer choices. Yet it's the detail that really makes an answer choice feel good or feel bad. Okay. So notice how I broke up answer choices into nouns and verbs and modifiers. And notice how I checked them in order. Did the evidence have the noun that I was looking for? Did the evidence have the verb I was looking for? Did the evidence support the modifiers of those nouns and verbs? Right? Again, it's not easy, and it does push you to really be clear about definitions, right? So are you really clear about the definition of surprising, like we dealt with in question 5? Are you clear with the word imposing and outwardly imposing? Okay. Are you defining others of their age? Are they more educated? Okay, educated, that's true, but is it really more than others of their age? And are you making sure that you're not contradicting anything that the passage is saying? A was correct because everything about this didn't contradict anything that was in the passage. Yeah, one of the kids, Viola, is highly, what's the term here? Had the artistic temperament highly developed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's more highly developed than people of her age. So this is how we stick to objectivity. This is how the SAT is structured, and this is how you use logic to work your way through these questions. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please click the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more of my videos, or you want to ask me a question on one of my office hours live streams, please click subscribe to Sophos Tutor.